Hey, everybody. Welcome to Ask the Management, uh, Intrusive Cat Edition. Uh, we are the JoCo Cruise Management. I'm Paul Sabourin.
I'm
And go ahead
Jonathan
and
Coulton.
yeah.
I'm Storm DiCostanzo.
And Drew Westphal.
And it's
And I'm
actually Ask,
also here.
yeah, Ask the Management Plus. In addition to the four members of management, we have, I'm pointing in the direction that you are from me right now. Introduce yourself, please.
Yeah, hi, I'm Thera. You might know me as Cruise Mom, but my new updated title that's way easier to explain to other businesses is Community Care Officer,
Or just Tara.
Or just
or just
Tara.
Tara.
Thera is
Yeah.
fine also, yeah.
So welcome those of you who are watching this. I have no idea how many of you that is or will be, but who cares, right? This is where we wanted to give this a shot online. We have an on for those of you new to the cruise. We always sort of have to remember that like half the people have never seen any of this stuff and may not even know who any of us are, much less what we look like before. Uh, on the cruise every year, we hold an in-person Ask the Management session where people can show up and ask us all sorts of questions about cruising and cruise life and how to run a cruise and the state of the cruise and all of those things. We wanted to. That is the best. That your cat's tail is just going to be there in the
The
corner.
tail is, I will say, the tail is a little bit distracting.
No,
She's
no,
sitting
it's
on the
perfect.
she's sitting on the hard drives because the hard drives are very warm.
um. So anyway, we have these sessions on board, and we thought, why don't we just give a shot at doing one online ahead of time to give people an idea of where things are at pre-cruise right now, and then to answer some of your questions. So we're going to do that right now. Let's have a little state of the state of things. Where are we at right now? Storm, what are you up to here? We're recording this on Tuesday, November 26th. Happy almost Thanksgiving, everybody. Uh, what's on your plate right now, cruise wise?
Yeah, so the state of the cruise is great. A couple of people did ask. So we're wrapping up sales for 2025. It's going to be a full, energetic, excited ship. And then we're already gearing up for the 2026 launch. So busy looking at a lot of very, very boring spreadsheets and looking into a crystal ball to try to figure out things like budgets. But it's looking good, in short.
Nice. And Drew, uh, what's things in
Yeah.
Drew land right now?
Well, Drewland is honestly also Terra land, and Terra's maybe more in the land than I am. But recently, the JoCo Cruise team traveled out to St. Louis, where we have our cargo year round. It's actually with friends of the cruise, Greater Than Games. Um, or well, it's nearby to them. It's not
Yeah.
technically with them. And all of the crew and collaborators, which are sort of two categories of crew for JoCo Cruise that we have been contracted, and we're in the process of booking their flights to bring all of them in, as well as all of the flights for our talent, the arrangements for the hotel, the meetings we'll have down in Florida, and then also all of the changes to our giant book. It's not really a book of onboard processes that the team that we're contracting for the cruise will use is it's almost done being edited at this point. So
Yeah.
we're getting ready.
Yeah. Tara, anything to add to that in your particular Terra land?
I mean, I got to go to the warehouse and it's always fun.
Is it?
When my
It is.
parents asked, they're like, but why do you have to go? What do you have to do out there? And I've given up trying to explain it. And so now I just say, well, I just have to go touch everything we own,
Yeah, it's
which
a
ends
lot
up
of
being
things.
fairly accurate. We own a lot of things and they all need to be in the right place.
You're the
And they're
you're
mostly that way.
you're the representative for the cruises collective OCD.
And
Yeah.
people are often surprised that this is a year-round process. So basically, all year, the team, the ops team, buys all the stuff that is going to be on the ship and sends it to St. Louis, and it has to be packed up and then shipped down to Florida for its final assembly.
It has to be packed up very specifically so
Yeah.
that we can always say exactly where it is and how many.
How many, just ballpark, how many pallets of stuff do we bring on board at this point? People may not be quite aware of the scale.
Also, what is a pallet? I think would
Yeah,
be
well, so that was going to be my follow-up question. Philosophically, what do you believe a pallet is? Because we have like those road cases now, but also some stuff does go on a regular pallet.
A pallet is a wooden base that's disposable on which boxes are stacked and then wrapped with plastic. And this allows for a group of boxes to become one thing from the point of view of a forklift and a truck, which allows for greater automation and also more trash.
How
It's
big
a
is a
polite-
pallet, Drew?
Well, there's many different sizes, but 40 by 48 inches is the standard United States pallet size.
Can-
We need
Can any pallet be put onto a cruise ship?
No. First of all, they have to be heat treated.
yes.
So to answer the
You
question,
got to
we
find
have,
the heat treated stamp on those pallets. If
We
it's
have-
not there, they will not let it on.
we have one pallet, but we stack it roughly 600
800 feet high. Yeah.
We also
The
have
limitation
Dr.
is the size of the cargo hold door.
Yeah.
It's like a
so-
Dr. Seuss situation.
So having fully established the definition of a pallet, and
Which
the
is
rough
just a
scale
skid.
of it,
It's a skid.
yeah. Oh
Yeah.
God, don't get me started on skids. How many of them do we bring, or would you rather express it in terms of tractor trailers' worth?
I don't actually know. It's all
Ballpark.
of the road cases plus 2 to 3 pallets.
Yeah, we bring up so few pallets now because of the road
Okay.
cases. There's like 50 to 60 road cases. The stuff that JoCo Cruise Operations brings, I think, is split out in 2 trucks, but might fit in 1 tractor trailer. I think, or at least most of it.
Mhm.
But then there's another box truck full of the production audio cargo. We also deliver to the ship 2 different days, including a week before the cruise, with items that we need even earlier than because the ship clears customs at 7 a.m. We're allowed to start loading after the luggage comes off around 8 or 9 a.m. But the event itself opens, at around 11:30 a.m. So that's one of the reasons that we pack things so anal retentively, is to try to have them all in the right place and loaded in the correct order so that the event can start in all the different locations on the ship.
And therefore, we need to send a team to St. Louis to do that very detailed thing
And to
so that
to touch all of them.
requests.
And I'll be
That's
back
true.
there in January, the most lovely time of year to be in St. Louis, as people from Missouri know.
And the warehouse is really well heated, is the other thing, Tara.
Yeah,
Of course it is.
It's
Of course
a
it is.
balmy-
Not drafty in any way.
So I am, in addition to having been given / taken the role of principal Sabourin on board and all that entails. If you're new to the cruise, you'll see how that goes. Once you're on board, I'm also in charge of the programming. The main performer lineup is essentially in place at this point. There's always, the chance of a straggler or 2 or 3 and such, but the bulk of it is in place. And now what I have been doing, or am doing, is working on the schedule. Every year, I print out these 11 by 17 sheets that I laminate. And I know this is a dumb meat space way of doing it, but it is kind of the only way I can can just lay it all out in one place on one screen, so to speak, to get a sense of like the flow of the entire week and be able to see where things might interfere and just sort of feel the balance. So my first pass through the schedule is always little pieces of paper on those sheets, and then eventually we convert them over to digital form and they'll show up on the online schedule eventually. But that's where I'm at right now. Jonathan, you of course are building the ship.
What am I working
As
on?
you are a shipwright and scrimshaw of great renown.
Bottle of whites, bottle of reds.
That's what I'm working on. I'm working on playing Billy Joel's scenes from an Italian restaurant.
Really?
Not in preparation for the cruise, just for fun. I'm the JoCo of JoCo Cruise, which means I don't have to do anything. I just wait for my opportunity to shine. That's what I'm working on
You're
right
the
now.
literal figurehead.
That's right.
Bottle of white, bottle of red. I'll be cruising until I'm dead.
Well, that's a less cheery way than I would describe it. But yeah.
And there's our next T-shirt.
Yeah. Done and done. I'll go call the designers.
Or at least an elevator mat.
No, I'm getting excited. I mean, honestly, like when the weather gets cold is when I start to remember, like, oh yeah, cruise is coming, and the I start to get excited about it again. I can't wait to be on the boat with everybody.
When the north wind blows off the Gowanus.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, so we're going to get to a whole bunch of you sent in questions, and thank you for all of that. Because we're not very thorough, and some people ask that their questions be anonymous. These are all going to be kind of anonymized and summarized versions of the questions, because also a lot of you may have asked variations on each other's questions. So we're going to just jump right into some of this stuff. A few of you asked variations on basically, I'm new to the cruise. Do you have any tips? Like if we want to play a board game, what's the best way to find or assemble a group? And how does the cruise work, and variations around that. And Thera, I would love to throw to you to start things off on this, because this is one of your main focuses, both on board
Oh,
and
yeah.
during the year.
New cruiser experience.
And I should say
No.
before, very quickly before we start, because a lot of people don't necessarily know, on any given year on the cruise, for many years at this point, around or over half the people on board are brand new to the cruise. We have a very enthusiastic community of people who return, and people enjoy and get into the community, but people may not realize how half the ship has never been on board before, and it can be daunting, but it also can be really fun. So sorry, I wanted to mention that because I think that's sort of an interesting data point that I often forget about.
Yeah. And the cruise it can be super overwhelming for your first time because there's always 18 things happening at once. So we publish a new attendee guide, which can be really handy if you want to know kind of the details about how, especially like embarkation in that first day is going to go. We have a Discord you can join, which is great. Folks there are very happy to answer your questions. We also have a wiki, which does have some more in-depth articles. We're still kind of fleshing that out. And if any folks want to help us publish stuff in the wiki, hit me up in the Discord. Happy to get you set up for that.
Yeah, Tara's been doing a lot of work over the past couple of months of adding some of this sort of introductory, I'm new to the cruise type questions to be answered in the wiki. So thank you for that, Tara. And I'll also mention in the Discord, which if you're not familiar with Discord, it's sort of an online group chat communication portal that's set up with a whole bunch of different channels of different topics. And there are numerous channels dedicated to onboard life, including an entire channel about planning games, or what games are you going to bring, what games are you going to play on board, and all
Yeah,
sorts
and
of
those
stuff like that.
folks
It's very specialized.
have grandfathered the links to our old. Every year, the game library folks will share a list of what games that we bring on board. And the last time we weighed them, it was a literal ton of board games. So there's a lot of options coming that we bring, and then many folks bring their own and start to plan things in advance. There tend to be like either whiteboards or easel pads in the game library for folks looking to set up a game. Twitter also has an LFG, a looking for group feature, which folks find really useful. So specifically, if you're looking to get together a group of people to do a thing, communication on board, there's ways to do that.
And for the new people, sorry, go ahead, Storm.
Very briefly, so for those who are new that might be watching this, you mentioned Twitter. What is
So I want Drew to answer that, actually.
Twitter is an onboard only version of a social media platform originally installed on the Westerdam in 2012 during the second JoCo cruise, that at the time aimed to be a piratically, jokingly named thing that was like the web service formerly known as Twitter. And as time has gone on, Twitter has sort of changed its focus, and it's now sort of a cross between a forums and a DM thing, and also the schedule, but then the newsletter. It's the JoCo, it's the unofficial, semi-official JoCo Cruise app that you don't need to use because you can have a completely analog experience. And if you don't like spoilers about your physical life and what will happen in it, you can just go to Florida the day before the cruise, go to the cruise port, walk on the ship, go to the new person orientation and use no technology while you are at sea. They will take complete care of you. There's paper everywhere. It's lovely.
I
So
love that
just
we
there,
got
there's
what is
options for both.
Twitter and why you shouldn't use it.
No, no, you should you
can.
may use it. Just the
Yeah.
analog cruising experience. It's
Yeah.
so rare to
Yeah.
Well,
fully
not to give the
technologically
impression that you need
disintermediated.
to, not to give the impression that you need to sort of plan everything out in advance. You can also just, as Drew said, you can also just show up. You will be led to the right place, and moreover, everybody on board is really friendly and enthusiastic. So, I do terrible in these kinds of situations. I hate walking up to a group of people, but I guarantee you, if you walk up to any group of people and say, "Hey, I'm new," you will have a bunch of new friends who are ready to tell you exactly how to make the most out of the experience. So it's a really great place to dive in if you don't want to do all this prep ahead of time.
And it is just one of the many things that Thera you just described. Did you have more tips?
No, I mean you can try to plan things in advance, but I find once you hit the open ocean, the best laid plans kind of fall apart, and
Yeah, a
you get
couple of
carried along on
pina
this.
coladas in,
Yeah.
you change
Yeah.
your ideas.
They're
much.
large hadron colladas, Jonathan, and you know it.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Sorry.
But to make it clear, there's lots of different avenues to getting information, both pre-cruise and on board. None of them are mandatory or required, but many people will find different versions of them helpful while on board. So we try and sort of give people lots of avenues to settling in to and enjoying their cruise.
We post physical schedules. We do have Sched, and you don't need to be subscribed to the internet. So if you just want to see what's happening, it's pretty simple.
Yeah. There were a couple more questions relating more directly to onboard cruise life, like a person asking questions about how the drink packages and excursions work and when and how do you deal with those. Also, people with some confusion or questions about how dinner works. Like, again, most nights there are two seatings in the main dining room of the ship. An early dinner and a late dinner, which are usually at 5 and 7:30 p.m. There's some variation on that occasionally, but generally speaking, that's how it works. That said, you don't have to eat dinner at the time that you are scheduled for. It's not a mandatory thing that you have to go eat dinner in the main dining room. There's all sorts of dining options all over the ship at most times of day. There are several different specialty restaurants on board that you can make reservations for. There's the ship's onboard buffet, the Lido Market, is open during dinner times and most other times to be able to get different food options there. You can order room service. It sometimes can take time, especially during the dinner times, because the food for room service comes out of the same kitchens that the main dining room does. But if you're, not in a huge rush to eat, that's an option available to you as well. There's pizza at available even late night. There's an actual pizza place, let's call it, called New York Pizza on the back deck of the ship. It's a joint. I don't know, what would you call it? A mob front?
Yeah. Well, it's not just like microwave cafeteria pizza. They have some kind of actual pizza oven.
They make pizza.
It's pretty good, actually.
Yeah.
I think half of my caloric consumption during the week is from that pizza place. It's good. Salads too.
Salads. They got panna cotta there. But they also have Lido has the make your own pasta bar, which I tend to hit up instead.
Well, it's not make your own. It's request
you don't
your
have
own
to
that they
cook
put in.
They'll make your own.
Bespoke
They'll make
pasta.
your own.
Just
Right.
picturing a person like
pasta.
pouring a pile of flour on a table and water.
Well, it's AI
some
now.
dough.
You just walk up and the AI will decide what kind of
Yeah,
pasta.
it gives you a pasta with really messed up fingers.
Chicken fingers. That's not what they're supposed to look like.
It's an omelet station, but for pasta.
Yeah.
They also have an omelet station.
Yes.
Or a
To which
pasta
you can put
station, but
pasta.
for omelets.
So all of which is to say, to answer that one specific question about dining options, you have many dining options, both during the set dinner times and before and after. So
You will not go hungry no matter your schedule.
Yeah. So do not feel. Go ahead, Thera.
I just want to say we work really hard to keep the Lido open. With the Lido's the kind of the buffet deck on the ship. It's really a magical place. But I think everybody who's ever been on a cruise ship has had the experience of thinking, "Ooh, I need a snack right now." And right now is when the Lido is closed. It has to close sometimes, both because the staff that's on the ship with us needs a break. Also because it is a physical kitchen with limited space and they need to rotate things. So we do really try to make sure you can always get something from the Lido, but it can't be open 24/7, sadly. And we do publish the hours in Sked, so you can know in advance when food will be open on the buffet.
And then going back to the question that someone asked about drink packages and drink packages, first of all, leading back, for example, to the Discord server, there is a channel dedicated to people discussing the mathematics involved and whether or not it is worth your while to pay for a drink package rather than paying for each drink you buy. So that is a lovely resource where many helpful people will tell you, based on your own planned and expected consumption, whether or not you should go ahead and get a package, and if so, which kind. There's packages for buying alcohol and buying different does alcohol have levels? I guess there's some that are sort of
there's
beer and
levels.
wine.
There's levels of drink package, and there's a non-alcoholic drink package.
Yeah.
In some years, there's actually been like a web tool where you can do these different sliders and indicate your answers to all these drink-related questions, and then the tool will tell you whether the drink package is indeed a value for you.
To be clear, this tool was built by attendees of the cruise. This is not a Holland America provided. This is our nerds, our particular brand of nerds. Build these pivot tables and sliders and apps.
And this is the kind of data analysis that they don't want you to know.
Yeah,
that's right. That's right. Do your own research.
They do your own research. That's right.
This one weird trick. And excursions are offered by the ship once everyone has their Holland America booking numbers, which usually happens a month or two out from sailing. So sometime, I believe, in January is the currently expected time that'll happen. The ship will also make their excursion packages available. We'll email everyone a lot more information about the timing of all this, but that's basically how it works. Is you can pre-book your excursions via the Holland America website. You can also book them once on board. That said, some excursions are popular and may sell out ahead of time. So it depends on what you're interested in, but there are options available for you to book your excursions as well.
You can also do your own thing. A big important distinction is if you book through Holland America, they will make sure you get back to the ship on time. If you're on your own,
they'll hold the ship for you.
Well, to be clear, I've had long conversations with Holland America people about it. Technically speaking, it's not that they will absolutely definitely hold the ship for you if you're on a Holland America sponsored excursion, because there are scheduling limits sometime and the ship has to leave at a certain point, depending on how incredibly late you are. That said, the ship knows who is on any given Holland America sponsored excursion, and they're well aware of it, and they're more likely to know the status and do their best to wait for you.
Yeah, they're responsible. They're responsible for you getting back on the ship on time.
Yeah, exactly. And as opposed, people are welcome to, you don't have to do excursions. You can go off on your own, or you can book your own excursion on shore. Just the benefits to booking a Holland America excursion are that they are they work directly with Holland America, and if there are issues, it is easier for them to coordinate getting you back to the ship and on board. I have personal experience with this. The last time we were in San Juan, I think, my wife and daughter got stuck on an infamous kayaking expedition that got stuck behind a jackknifed boat trailer on a one-lane mountain road. And they were able to hold the ship very late for the people stuck on that excursion, including my family, which was very nice, but very, very nerve-wracking because the ship was held until like 12:30 a.m. or something like that. But boy, were they all tired and relieved and ready to go to bed when they all got back on board. But it was
But first, a little pizza.
Yeah. Let's see. Very important question for both Drew and Thera. Drew, in consultation with Thera, certainly, if not with the great encouragement from Thera, debuted a specialty drink last year, Drew's Back Deck Juice, which was a very big hit. And someone is asking, will Drew's Back Deck Juice be returning for 2025, and will there be any new signature drinks coming in 2025? So most importantly, Drew, we're gonna have back deck juice again, right?
Yes.
I swear on this cat's life.
There, no, we intend to bring it back, and I think that Tara and I, and some other team members end up down in an Airbnb for a couple weeks before the cruise. And it's a place where you sort of gradually lose your mind while looking at manifests of both cargo and people. And back to Drew's Back Deck Juice started because it's a sort of disgusting name for something, and because we worked together to make the most unhinged flyer that was a mix of like clip art and intentionally deranged looking AI figurines. And Yeah, I mean that's really it. So I think that the question is just will we collectively lose our minds together again, and what I
Assuredly,
don't
we
know.
will.
Yeah. Do you have any dreams, Tara? The other thing I should say is Mark Pell's on board the New Amsterdam actually provided this recipe for the spicy margarita to us.
He's
So credit to
the
the New
ship's
Amsterdam
hotel manager.
general manager.
General manager, yes.
Yep.
Because a ship is a floating hotel, in case you were unclear on that.
Yeah, the back deck juice was actually, it was not the most sold drink, but it was not
It
available
was
everywhere.
close though.
So
It was close too,
by
right?
square footage, it was the clear winner.
Yeah.
By
I
square footage, a very popular beverage is not a metric you hear a lot, but I think it's the truth
It's a
that people
cruise
want.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
we and again, for those of you new to the cruise, people are on vacation and it's a tropical vacation and a cruise, and there is certainly, for those who care to do it, drinking is available, which is not to say that the entire cruise is built around drinking culture. There are plenty of us, myself included, who don't drink alcohol. There are many options available. In fact, I am only really thinking about this now, is I would like to come up with a non-alcoholic, not a version of Drew's Back Deck Juice, but a specialty drink from Principal Sabourin, some kind of non-alcoholic mocktail that we can push alongside this
Can it be just straight apple
degenerate.
juice with a graham cracker crust rim?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Liquid pizza.
But Storm, and you can talk to this some. We like to do. One of the nice things about chartering a ship is you get to sort of fiddle with things and specialize some things, among which we try and get we fiddle with the drinks menu some.
Yeah, it's kind of all the little stuff you see around menu items, the drinks, the elevators, just something that just makes it a more fun thing. And a lot of it is as we get closer to sailing time, just sort of what the vibe is. Like the back deck juice that came from its own place, and that we try to do these things as far ahead as we can. But there's always still fun for the meme of the day, at least for menu items.
And basically, once we learned that you could customize parts of the cruise experience, we can't help ourselves but customize as many things as possible. I remember at some point we were talking about, the elevator says fourth floor. We were asking, can we change that voice? And they were like, slow down. I mean, maybe it would be really complicated, but I don't know.
They literally have to send the circuit board back to Italy,
Yeah.
where
It would be
it's
doable.
manufactured,
Yeah.
and we seriously
We
considered
considered it. Yeah.
Well, there was a second, not the chief electrician, but another electrician who I had some drinks with one of the pre-cruises, who seemed to have like a lead on. It's like, oh, I can change that elevator voice. So
Yeah, you just need to talk to the right person, and
Gotta
then it
hack
gets
the
done.
planet,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah, we really need to spend just more time schmoozing the ship.
That said, again, for people who've never been on a cruise before, on the Holland America ships, all the elevators have little floor mats, and each day that floor mat will say what day of the week it is, because often it's easy to
It's actually
lose
more
track.
useful information than you would think after a
Yeah.
couple of days. Yeah.
And once we realized a number of years ago that we were allowed to customize those, we've turned it into a mini industry on our end, and the four of us in management spend way too much time coming up with some new variations each year. We don't make them all new, but we try and sort of add some new ones each year. And rotate them in and out over the week. So that's one thing to look forward to if you hadn't been aware of it, is the different
Custom elevator
custom
rugs.
elevator rugs.
And we will be auctioning off, as we did last year, some of our older rugs, the ones that are out of circulation, and they will go to charity. The proceeds will go to charity
Yeah.
and the
I think
crew fund.
one of the interesting things people might not know is some of the reasons those rugs might be out of circulation is the previous ship we were on had elevators of slightly different size, so we can't use them anymore in the elevators on the New Amsterdam.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's like 6 or 8 elevator geometries on the ship, and the JoCo Cruise road cases are specially designed to fit in most of them.
And also, like, the Tron Man joke just died.
Yeah.
It's old, so we had to get rid of that rug a while ago.
We had a question somewhat relating to all this. A person wanting to just know more general information about how JoCo Cruise goes about like making this cruise and how things work on board and how we get ready for it during the year. And Drew, I would love to throw to you about some of this. We've been talking about some of it already, but it's worth going further into.
Yeah, well, I think the truth is that a lot of my knowledge about exactly how this works in the nuts and bolts is out of date because it has become way more of a team effort over the past few years. And Thera, Leanne, Anna, and Ashley on the operations team are, and Danielle, who works with the operations team, but also works with Storm and Paul on talent and marketing. Um, I would say that these are the real cruise makers at this point. And we divide things. I mean, just to go by the responsibilities in that team, Thera helps with a lot of like broad team coordination as well as customer service. We have Leanne on our team who focuses mostly on preparing our memorandum that goes to the ship detailing exactly what's going to be happening on board. Ashley, who works on contracting for crew and establishing their scopes of work throughout the week, because we bring, along with the ship's 850 to 950 crew, depending on capacity and staffing levels. We bring about 100 of our own crew who run things from the info desk to the game library to the crafting room to the console gaming room, as well as doing data gathering around the ship on attendance so that we can measure the effectiveness of our sort of scheduling things, because in order to manage the crowds, we need to counter program things. That's one of Paul's many specialties with his analog
One of the
process.
dirty secrets of event planning.
Um, and then Anna on our team also works on customer service and the cargo logistics, which, as we sort of hinted at, we have a system of 3 and 4 letter codes that designate the first 3 letters designate a variety of destinations on the ship, and the destinations are kind of physical, but they're also keyed to areas of responsibility. And then there's an optional 4th letter suffix to the code that designates sort of special loading instructions for that thing, and potentially also additional customs instructions, because every piece of cargo that comes on the ship has to technically be exported from and then re-imported to the United States at the end of our voyage. So as you can imagine, there's some paperwork with that, and that is the short version of a very long story of how we plan the cruise. Just going by the like overarching responsibilities of the people on our team. How bad
Yeah.
did I do with that, Thera?
No, that was good. I'd also say, like, Thera, and you can talk about, we also have a whole team of onboard volunteer helpers
Yeah.
from the attendees.
Yeah. So the helpers, gosh, when I first started, there were like 8 people who helped every time. And now there's 100 to 120 folks who help on every sailing, which is amazing. You have to have been on at least one cruise to be able to help. So we talked about earlier, for your first time experience with the cruise can be really overwhelming. And I don't want helping to be something that takes away from the experience. I want it to be something that adds to the experience. So our helpers do all sorts of cool stuff, generally not more than 2 hours at a time. We're the busiest on the first day and the last day because, as Drew said, we have all of this stuff that we export from the United States and re-import to it. So there's a lot of things we need to touch, get to a specific place, folks we need to help get on board, pens we need to count to pack up, signs that go up and come down, all sorts of stuff like that. But we also want that good data about who is where. So we have folks that help get head counts about how many folks go into the main theater each night, which really helps us inform how many people say can be in the red team dinner seating, how many people can be in the gold team dinner seating. What do we expect about that? And I appreciate them all so much. It's so one of my favorite things each year is the all helper meeting. Because first of all, I've finally gotten on the ship by the time that happens. The cruise is really happening. I don't have to be in the terminal anymore. Everybody's on board. And I get to see them all in one room. It's really kind of overwhelming, and I cry every time.
I'm getting a little
And-
teary right now.
And shout out also, we have a team, the self-dubbed as the Shutternauts. So if you haven't been on the ship, they get most of the video or photo and also some video that you see on social media all year long. We have one event a year, so we have to get everything we can from that. So that is a mostly volunteer group as well.
And we would be remiss also if I didn't mention Bob, who for many years at this point has been in charge of scheduling the Shadow Cruise events, which very briefly, if you're brand new to the cruise, we allow the attendees to schedule and run a bunch of their own events, whether, book clubs and dance lessons and meetups and all sorts of things. Bob, once I have put together the main schedule, I sort of throw it over to Bob so he knows where he can fit in all of the Shadow Cruise events. And that is a very challenging job that he's done a wonderful job with over the years. And he also, in conjunction with a few other people, Nathaniel, and I'm not sure who else, has developed our own internal scheduling app. We use Sked as our public-facing schedule, but as far as creating our own digital schedule, there's some capabilities that Sked just can't quite do or handle properly the way we want it to. So Bob developed essentially what is our own internal Sked that does a bunch of things like, behind the scenes events like sound checks and this room has to be closed because we're reassembling the road cases and things like that. All sorts of events that don't show up on the schedule but need to be accounted for. He built this app that handles all of those behind the scenes events for us as well. And then we eventually export the public facing data out to Sked. And that has been a godsend for me personally, among others. So thanks to Bob and Nathaniel for that. Jonathan, how's where you at in the Billy Joel catalog right now in your head?
I got The Stranger going right now.
Okay, great. Well, very briefly speaking, again, talking about sort of the backstage stuff and the making of the cruise and such. There's some new programming happening this year that Drew is leading the charge for. That if you'd like to talk about it a little bit, I think it's pretty cool.
Well, I don't want to do any spoilers, but yeah, we're going to be resurrecting some format of a morning show that will not, in fact, be aired in the morning on board the ship to try to capture a little bit more of the guest experience on board and just sort of help to highlight some of all the different amazing things that are happening on the ship. Because we opened this talking about the new attendee experience, but it was also tied in with a question about the game room. So it could seem like the cruise is all about gaming, but it's not actually. There's also the crafting, or maybe you're there to do a bunch of different Shadow Cruise events that are tied to your interests, or you're there for the sci-fi fantasy track. And there's just so much that happens during the week and so many stories that kind of emerge throughout the week. I heard a great tale about like a special Mario Kart rematch that happened in the game library last year, with like the champion who wasn't able to make it to the actual event. And like there's just so many little things like that we're really hoping to capture on camera.
So it's going to have like
share with you.
correspondence highlighting human interest stories on board during the week, kind of thing.
This is the plan. Yes, indeed. Yeah.
For the olds, it's going to be real people.
It's the Today Show.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Daily show on board the ship of some
Oh,
kind.
and there was one specific question I wanted to touch on briefly. Somebody asked who provides the jigsaw puzzles for the Crow's Nest and what happens to them after the cruise. We actually have an arrangement with, is it Ravensburger or Ravensburger?
Ravensburger.
Games. They're kind enough to let us choose a selection of puzzles each year, and we get them brought on board.
And sometimes they volunteer us a whole bunch of puzzles.
Yeah, well, so last year, as those of us who attended last year well know, so this is one of my favorite things to do of the year is to Storm and I just sort of wander through the Ravensburger catalog and pick some puzzles. And in going through, they happen to have this one puzzle of John Deere tractors, and I thought to myself, well, that's just silly. That'd be great to have on our nerd cruise. What a non sequitur. Tee-hee. So we selected that. Somebody on the Ravensburger end entered a wrong digit in a database or something, and they ended up sending us 13 of these John Deere puzzles, and it became quite the meme. It was certainly the recurring bit of the year. So that was nice of them. We are not repeating that this year. Sorry to say.
That we know of.
Yeah.
No, I've packed puzzles.
Yes, that's right. Tara can confirm we do not have 13 of any given puzzle. But to answer-
Ravensburger is going to send a team to St. Louis. Puzzles. And
Replace
palette
all
will
the puzzles
appear.
with John Deere puzzles.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a heist.
Yeah, 4 Ravensburger employees wearing night vision goggles to send the dead of night on grappling wire from a helicopter.
Where did this 100 Heinz ketchup puzzles come from?
We have on occasion also manufactured some custom puzzles. I don't believe we've made any this year. It's usually driven by is there any sort of pictures that jump out to us from a previous year or previous years that we think would make a neat or kind of funny puzzle. I don't think we've have any particularly for this year, but it's something that sometimes happens. And all that being said, to answer the specific question, the puzzles at the end of the cruise, we donate them to the ship. If either the crew uses them or they add them to the ship's jigsaw puzzle library, that's entirely up to them.
Have they ever added one of the ones that's photos of our cruise?
I don't think we've usually donated those, but I cannot speak authoritatively as to what's happened to those.
It'd be funny if a bunch of grandmas were working on a puzzle with my face on it.
Yeah.
That would make me really happy.
I like to imagine
like my grandchild.
I like to imagine that the captain has just sort of surreptitiously taken this photo of the 4 of us and every so often puts it back together and reminisces about the wonderful JoCo Cruise, guys.
Sheds a single tear of gratitude.
Yep.
The captain did finish the John Deere puzzle that we gifted him last
He
year.
did.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah, he sent me a message because he was off. He went home not long after our cruise, and he had completed that puzzle.
That's wonderful.
I have
But the
a
most
question. Sorry, go ahead.
just the biggest JoCo Cruise piece of memorabilia that has remained on a cruise ship is actually on the MS Oosterdam, which is a ship that we chartered before 2020. I think the last year was 2019. But on the Oosterdam, you will find in her crow's nest a Lego recreation of the Oosterdam done by Nathan Sawaya, cruise regular. And it's about 10 feet long, and there's a bunch of pictures of it on Reddit if you look for it, because it's on this ship, so people see it every week.
This was commissioned
really
ahead of
cool.
time. This wasn't randomly assembled on board. To be clear, Nathan is a professional Lego sculptor.
Professional,
Although
an artist. Yeah, it's a very accurate reproduction as well. It's remarkable.
Fun fact: if you give a ship's captain a puzzle or a Lego kit, they are by maritime law required to finish it before they are offered that vessel.
Oh, thank God. I thought you were married to them.
Well, you learn something new every day. We have a question regarding tipping on board. What's an appropriate tip to leave at the end of the cruise? And we want to talk a little bit about crew incentives and tipping. Storm, feel free to lead the charge on this one.
Yeah, so we do, unlike most cruises, include what they call the crew incentive as part of what you are paying, and that goes to like your stateroom attendant, I think the head of dining, a set bunch of folks. That said, absolutely, if someone really does you a solid, and like Drew, you may have some tips about how to tip bar staff in particular, just as a general thing, absolutely, you can provide more tip. Also, there are folks that if you haven't been on a cruise before, it's unique that you pull up and there are porters that are there who you can give your bags to, and they will bring them to your room. That they are not included in the prepaid gratuity. It is never expected, but typically you can give them a couple of bucks or even as much as $5 if you're feeling jaunty per bag that you hand off to them, because you're taking care of your precious stuff.
Yeah, the party line on tipping from the ship is that it is prepaid and it is not necessary. But when a lot of the crew, especially if you get to know them, you will see the incredibly hardworking people who are so focused on making sure that you have a great vacation, and also so not trying to be in the spotlight while they do that. So, I think your stateroom steward, there's no terrestrial hotel I've been to or that I can afford where your room gets made up 3 times a day. It's and there's just so many people who really work around the clock, literally, to make sure that you have a great vacation. So, I think tipping, leaving something in cash for your stateroom steward at the end of your voyage, and tipping folks on board, if they have been a great part of your experience. Um, is really, it's very much appreciated by the crew, for sure. And I think it's a nice way to kind of like show them that you see the work that they are doing for you.
Yeah, I think a lot of folks bring a stack of dollar bills for like ordering drinks and stuff. It's easier than putting it on your room, and it kind of feels nice. But we do also do the silent auction and take donations for the onboard crew fund. So your tips go to, the folks that you're individually working with. The whole crew, though, works so hard. You're probably not going to end up tipping the person at the pasta station that feeds me every night in the Lido, or the people that make your pizza, or the folks that do your laundry. Those aren't folks that are going to get those gratuities. So the onboard crew fund actually helps the whole ship have a party. And we got like secretly invited to it one year. It was incredibly charming. The captain was there in like shorts and a polo,
Yeah.
dishing out
Serving
food from the
paella,
buffet.
yeah.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, it was really, really great. And it made sure that like literally everybody who works on that ship got something nice that we helped provide. And so I really actually love that we help fund the crew fund for everybody.
And if you're new to cruising, not familiar, a lot of crew members, they're on for months and months at a time that they have contracts. So these parties and things that they use the crew fund for really do make a material difference in how that crew, each member is going to enjoy themselves and their experience too.
No. All right. Next question. There's a couple sort of variations on this again, talking about how do we decide where we sail from each year, and questions regarding, as many of you already know, in 2026 we'll be sailing out of San Diego, which is a thing we haven't done since 2018, and questions of, will we continue to be sailing out of the West Coast going forward, and how do we choose our not destinations? What's the opposite of destination? Our cruise port.
Ports
Itinerary?
of call.
Yeah. How do we choose where we sail from each
Port
year?
of departure.
Port of departure. Thank you. So whoever would like to jump in for, well, obviously your cat, Jonathan.
My cat
has
is
some
interested.
thoughts.
Well, yeah, it can seem like, oh yeah, there's this whole world of ships and places you can go from, and there are, but for our scale and for what we do, it's more limited. And starting with ship size, like how many people want to come on the cruise, and then where those ships are at what time of year, and how much it costs to get that ship. So one of the reasons why sailing out of Florida is so popular is there's so many ships there. There's so many different destinations. And then also what cruise line. Why we really love Holland America, not just because the ships are nice, but they're really specialists at doing charter cruises. We've talked about this list of instructions we give to the ship. It's really complex, and they've really set themselves up to do that well. So it's all these things together, and people often ask about places like Alaska or Europe. And with those, you both have a much greater expense to start with, and the types of cruises they are, where it's more about going to the destinations along the way. And for us, we want to deliver this community and this experience, all the fun things that happen on the ship. If you're in port every day, there's just less time for that. So it's the short version is it's complicated, but the key thing is we always want to be able to set it up to create this world that has grown over all these years, and to have it be an environment when people come, they feel like they're welcome. And we're very excited to be going to San Diego in 2026. It's something that we've been looking forward to. We went in 2017 and then again in 2018, which wasn't great. We actually saw a big drop off because we repeated West Coast twice. But if we want to talk more about someone wants to pick up on the move to the West Coast.
Yeah,
I mean,
go ahead, Jonathan.
I think the elephant in the room is Florida, which is often the case in this country. But we have heard a lot from our gay and trans friends that it's difficult to go into Florida, or that they don't want to spend any money in Florida because of the political situation and the really anti-LGBTQ legislation that has been happening, and we're really sympathetic to that. It's a really heartbreaking thing to think that so many of our community don't feel welcome in that state, don't feel comfortable going to that state, it's a hard situation that we had contracted for 2 years to sail out of Florida. So we worked with Holland America. We listened to the community, and I should say also, we've heard in talking with there's a group called Equality Florida that is a nonprofit that sort of works on these issues on behalf of the LGBTQ community, and we've been talking to them as well. We've Drew and Thera have done a number of listening sessions with members of that community. So we are really listening and trying to figure out what's best to do. And I should say, for every person who does not want to go into Florida, I've heard from people in the LGBTQ community who say, don't stop going to Florida. This is where the fight is. And in many ways, if you're gay and trans and you live in Florida, you don't want to be abandoned, right? You like to see that this fight is happening. In many ways, it makes me happy to think that our event, where everybody is welcome, is a middle finger to that administration, not to put too fine a point on it. So, we're trying to find the right balance, and we really are trying to listen. But that is one of the reasons that we worked with Holland America to figure out a way to get back to the West Coast. And Drew and Thera, do you want to talk a little bit about those listening sessions, or about Equality Florida?
I mean, hearing from our guests about, their difficulties traveling to Florida was really informative for us. And it was tough that it took a couple years for us to be able to get back to the West Coast. And I think that that's one of the reasons that we're sort of in a holding pattern, waiting and seeing what happens after 2026 in terms of our future itineraries, because as we've seen, JoCo Cruise can seem kind of like a big company, but the truth is you're looking at half the people who work there year round right now. And we are not able to really, there, in some ways we're able to move mountains, and in others we're not. And we are very much in the same situation that people are in right now with the politics in this country, of watching what is going to happen and how it plays out. And I think for us, what our really core value is making sure that JoCo Cruise is a place where everybody feels that they can feel safe and that they are able to attend, and creating the thing that is like that, and the thing that is the closest to that can be practically created. The thing that's tough running an event that's this complicated and that involves this much sort of the machinations of like a business and a cruise line and a cruise ship and the United States of America is that like that sort of clause like that practically can be created. Actually, it takes up a lot of space for us. So I think that maybe the thing that we can be the clearest about as far as our future itineraries is how important the community is to the long-term success of JoCo Cruise and also to the sort of core values of the JoCo Cruise. That was sort of a mouthful. But I don't know, Tara, what are your takeaways there?
No, I mean, I think you covered it. I think unfortunately the speed at which the political situation unfolds is way quicker than the speed at which um like we can ask Holland America to change things. We do a lot of customization. We talk a lot about like how amazing it is, how much we can do once we're on board, but that's very different than what we can do from land because from the Holland America perspective, we charter one boat for 1 week a year, which in their fleet-wide operations is not a lot. Um, so I know that we all are really trying, and I hope that our guests do too, but I also completely understand and have great empathy for the fact that, trying is not enough for folks to feel safe. And I don't want anybody to come where they don't feel safe.
Mm-hmm.
But, uh, so it's incredibly challenging. It's something that we all still think about all the time, and we're still working on.
Yeah, and we try to celebrate the small victories too. We've been informed that basically Holland America is in the process of a lengthy multi-year redesign on some of their core computer systems that will allow them to represent the gender X, which is now a gender marker that can go on US passports, which eventually means that that'll get threaded through the rest of their onboard operation, which means that kind of the default salutations that they use for people will start to change. And this is something that, we've also seen improvements in their vegan and vegetarian food labeling. And we like to think that because we have pushed so much for them to make these changes in the small for the JoCo cruise, that, and cruising is generally much older as a hobby than the JoCo cruise style of cruising. Our average age is about 42. Average age on a regular Holland America cruise, I believe, is almost twice that. I will not go into any more details on that, but it's kind of interesting. Anyway, we're proud. We like to think that we have sort of helped to expose the cruising, which can often be kind of a red vacation, to a little bit more of a younger crowd with different needs for their
Yeah.
trip.
And if nothing else, to set an example of how there are many different needs in this community and how you might serve them. We go to great lengths to survey all of the bathrooms and find out what equipment is each one in each one, and make new signs and make them all gender neutral. And it's not as if
Half of them.
half of them
And all gender inclusive.
Gender.
Gender
Okay, thank you.
Sorry,
Thank
Jonathan.
you. No, thank you. And it's not as if we can say to Holland America, you have to do this now, or we will leave, because they would be like, okay, see you later. But hopefully in doing that and in doing that kind of thing, and also we have a lot of conversations with the staff about gender. The staff who is trained to say sir and ma'am, we say many times in many meetings, please do not use sir and ma'am, just use somebody's name. And so it is our hope that just exposure to those ideas is helping to move the needle with this company and the cruising in general.
And one last little bit of context, again, for those of you who may not be as intimately familiar with the cruise industry as we are. Florida is where much of cruising infrastructure is, and where easily the vast majority, at least in North America, the vast majority of cruise ships of all different sizes depart from and are based in. So when people ask us, will you just be sailing from the West Coast from now on? We'd love to be able to say that we don't have to sail out of Florida anymore. The honest answer is we don't know, um, because as we've been describing, there's so many variables involved, and it's not just us saying, well, this is hard, so we're not going to do it. We're not going to bother, and we'll go the easy route. But it's factors like the particular types of ship, because our event really only fits on a small number. The event, certainly as it exists right now, fits on a small number of ships to be able to support the type of programming we do. We have had the experience already, as many of you may know. We did, as Storm said, we sailed out of San Diego in 2017 and again in 2018, and we experienced a huge loss of attendance in 2018 because of many reasons, some of which are like the ports of call are not as varied from a West Coast sailing. The beaches, the water's colder. There's not as many nice beaches, and people may have had whatever reasons, but the fact of the matter is, we've had this experience of, it was touch and go as to whether JoCo Cruise was going to continue to exist after 2018 for a while. So we have to bear that in mind. And again, not to say that this is all going to be about money when it comes down to it, or anything remotely like that, but we also we want to make decisions that support our people, but also keep us viable as an event so we can keep it going, to be able to continue to make this event available and the welcoming structure that we've established for this event.
Yeah, and
Very
even though Paul is just talking about how terrible it is on the West Coast, please don't not come.
It's great every once in a while.
Yeah.
No, it is. It's great.
Jumping back quickly, just on the improvements we make and being as inclusive as we can and working with the cruise line, the survey that we send every year, that data that we get has been very helpful, that we can share with the cruise line when they say we want more vegan options or gluten-free, or what can you do about the restrooms. That it's super helpful, and it's undergoing an overhaul this year, so that if you don't want to participate in the whole enchilada, you won't have to, but if you want to, you still can.
We are running a little longer than we were expecting. Not that we're on a particular clock, but just for us to mostly bear that in mind. There are a couple more questions I would like to get to before we wrap up here, but just bear that in mind in our answers on our end. And I say that as I jump into this very light topic of, we've got a couple of questions regarding political discussions and political topics on board. And obviously the state of things, both in the United States and worldwide, means there's a lot of things that can come up that people have very strong feelings about in any direction. And there have been some questions from people regarding how do we address them? How do we try and make sure that people feel welcome and safe on board? And how are we going to handle these kinds of things? Jonathan, go ahead and jump on in.
Yeah,
regarding this,
I mean,
we've had a lot of discussions about it on our end.
Yeah, and there definitely are plenty of things to argue about in the world these days. In general, we do not have political events. We don't schedule anything in our official schedule that is political. We don't, in terms of the what comedians talk about or what our performers might say, we don't censor them or give them anything that they can't talk about, but we don't do anything that is, centrally political. And similarly with the Shadow Cruise, we will not censor anybody from doing anything, but we will definitely ask if somebody wants to do a political event of some kind, that they make it clear that that's what that is, so people can attend or not attend. And in general, I would say that we rely a lot on the community to be kind and empathetic and accepting. I think that we have, obviously, like, people will have disagreements about things, but I've never seen a group of people that was better at sort of allowing space for each other. I mean, that's sort of the very center of what we do and what this community is. That said, it is definitely easier to argue online than it is in person. So I mean, when you're on board, you can choose to spend time in message boards, finding people who are wrong on the internet and trying to convince them otherwise, or you could spend your time having fun on a cruise. I recommend the latter because you could do the rest. You could do the other thing the rest of the year. And then, overall, we have a code of conduct, which is very clear about what kinds of behavior is allowed and what kinds of behavior is not. We have an onboard person who's we call the ship listener, who is dedicated to handling issues like this. We have a number of ways that you can get in touch with this person and try to address issues if somebody becomes abusive, or if you do feel unwelcome in some way. We really do want to hear about it and try to address it. And certainly with the online portion with Twitter, we have a very strong moderation team in place. We're not going to forbid certain kinds of discussion, but we can definitely tell when people are arguing just to argue or arguing just to make each other feel bad, and we don't want that to happen. And so we will ask people to cool off if we see that happening. We are not afraid to shut that whole thing down if we need to. I myself have become very suspicious of online interactions between people of late, and one of the things I love about this cruise is it's one of the rare times that you get to be in the same physical space with a bunch of people, and to actually be a part of a community that has great values and a great vibe. And that is where I would spend all my time if I could. So that's a very long-winded answer, but I hope it covers most of it. Does anybody have anything to add to that?
Yeah.
Drew.
I mean, just a quick one. I think if you really are new to the cruise, or if you're watching this and wondering if you're going to come along, and you're hearing that none of our events are centrally political, that is true. I think that the one bright line for JoCo Cruise is inclusivity. So if you believe that including people, everyone is a political thing, and that's going to be a problem for you, then I think we can safely say that, like, the JoCo Cruise is not the place for you.
Here, here.
Because that's a core value of ours. And as for, I was thinking about how we convert half the bathrooms on the ship to gender neutral and keep the other half in their original configuration.
Gender inclusive.
You're absolutely right. That a core thing is that we want to create space for people who to have a variety of different experiences. And I think that that's sort of the same thing with the political discussion, is that we want there to be space for people to enjoy a vacation away from those things, but also to be able to have, a space where, with people who also want to have that experience, they can have those discussions if that's what they're after.
Yeah, I was going to say we definitely don't want to discourage these types of discussions if people want to have them. For example, like if you're a community organizer and you want to hold a sort of workshop for people who are interested in finding out how to become more active in their own communities, we absolutely welcome that. We just also want to make sure that people are clear as to the content. The general, content of whatever you're going to be discussing in the event, just so nobody, ends up mistakenly in the wrong event or what have you.
It said letter, but it was actually about burritos.
Yeah, and I think that, like, the phrase vibes is incredibly vague and overused. But there's like one, we have, I think, some shirt or hat that said something about all vibes welcome. And, like, I think that is very important to us. Like, one way I've heard the cruise described as, like, a family-friendly, queer-friendly, softcore daytime rave. And, like, those two things, like family friendly and queer friendly, are kind of a combo you don't actually see that much. Like, we really would like for there to be a lot of different tracks for a lot of different experiences in the cruise, sort of like a pasta bar for a week almost.
Including introverts, especially introverts.
Indeed.
A couple more quick questions, and we're going to wrap things up. One is a hyper-specific question that somebody submitted regarding our laminates And the fact that the laminates that we provide are single hook based, and that very often that means that the laminate will get flipped around. This is a very good question and a very good point that someone made. This is last year's laminate. As of last year, we made our laminates double-sided,
Oh
which they
yeah.
will be again this year because
Problem
Paul calls
solved.
them Paul calls them laminates because he's the person that orders them, and
Yes.
technically they are laminates. But the rest of us who don't order them call them badges.
well,
Thank you,
fine.
Thera.
To the layperson, are badges that are laminated.
Badges.
But anyway, yeah, that was
Laminate inclusive.
so that was one, and finally, maybe the most important question of this session. Someone has asked. Actually, several people have asked, how can we get Drew to sing more on board? Drew has a lovely voice. He often hides it under a bushel. The last couple of years, he has slowly emerged from his bilge-coated cocoon that he's been
like Michael Bublé at Christmas time.
Yes, and he's
There's just less space
slowly-
in the shipment for bushels also. So well, Paul does make the schedule, so feel free to entreat Paul to schedule me more. And the other thing I will say is that I'm not a professional musician, so if I'm going to end up singing on the stage, it's like there's got to be some accompaniment, which has to come from a band. It's not. I'm not exactly a batteries included singer, unfortunately. So there are some things. I do play the guitar, but just not particularly well. It appears that I may, though, do a non-main stage performance of some kind with my own somewhat limited guitar skills. And my friend Sam.
Really selling it there.
with your bag of trick.
Yeah, my bag of trick.
That is a good band name, actually.
Bag of trick.
Bag of trick.
All right. Well, we did it. We got to the end of our list of questions. Thank you all so much for submitting them. Thank you, Thera, for joining us. Again, I'm looking over to you where you are on my screen, which probably does not match what everybody's seeing. Hopefully this goes well. Hopefully we'll do more of these. And at the very least, we will all see you on board JoCo Cruise 2025 and
It's gonna be a good time.
2026.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
All right. Bye.
Hey.
Bye.